What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interviews YouTube channel for a special one. I was really looking forward to seeing this performance, and he did not disappoint. Colman Domingo for Rustin. So I was recently talking to Avi Kaufman, and she was telling me, you can't miss this performance. This is one you're going to be talking about for months to come and then beyond. And she was not wrong. You are something else in this movie.
Oh, Perry, thank you so much. I appreciate that. This film was made with so much love and respect and honor for this unsung hero of many. And I know that it was, I'm glad that it's being received with as much love, truly, because it's really, it's monumental. Yeah, it's pulling this man out of the shadows of history and giving him his moment.
You truly feel it while you're watching it. I feel like that love does radiate off the screen. All right, I'm starting with a really big question inspired by the film, because I really love the idea that's mentioned at the very beginning, owning your power. So I wanted to apply that to your career overall and this business. Can you pinpoint a moment where you first learned the power of your own voice on set and to start to own your power in this industry?
Wow, that's a great question, Barry. That's great. Wow, you hit hard. That's good. You know what? I think the very first thing when it came to owning my power was actually, as a young actor, I used to be very frustrated with the roles that I was, being offered to audition. As a young black man in the world, I was getting all these roles that were, drug dealer number 2, you name it. And I remember my mother told me, I was so frustrated one time. She says, well, don't complain about it. You have to do something about it. So that's why I became a writer. So I decided to write the roles that I wanted to see. And actually, by writing and then directing and producing, I started to feel like I had power. I had power with what stories I wanted to tell. And then I wanted to empower my fellow brothers and sisters, white, black, and other. I'm like, write these stories, write these incredible stories about women. You write it. Let's not just wait for the industry to write it. Do it yourself. So that's when I actually started to own my power. And that was maybe when I was 21 years old. And then I think that power has led me into the rooms that I've been in. And it's, people know that when you hire me, you're hiring somebody who definitely has a voice. I will definitely, you want to get every part of me. I'm going to help lead a set or talk about how we build this thing. I'm not just going to show up and learn my lines and hit my marks. I'm going to figure out how are they being taken care of. In the theater, they call me, there's always a role for the equity deputy. That's the role that, you had, if you don't know that, my friends out there, it's the role that the company says, oh, this is the person you go to if there's any problems with anything. You talk to the producers, you talk to that, and it's always me. It's always been me. So I've always been a person, I guess, who felt like I had a sense of power in this industry. And it started when I was about 21,
Equity deputy. I love that. Should be in the special skills section. I'm like, I love that. I do want to get into you being a leader on this set, and I'm going to do it this way because I heard in another interview someone say that this was actually your first lead role in a feature film, and like my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it.
I know, right? It's wild because people say that people always know me when I see people in the street. They know I'm that guy, but they don't know what movie they've seen me in because I sort of shapeshift and I'm always a supporting player and you never know where I'm going to pop out. And I change my weight and my age and my accents and you name it. And so that was happening for a very long time. And then the idea for this role, I feel like the role to sort of match sort of my heart's desire, the idea that I can give everything I could as an actor for a role like this was everything. So I knew I had everything to give to it, but also I knew it was experience of like 32 years in the making. I didn't just get out of grad school and get my first lead role. I mean, many people have, and that's wonderful. But my experience was I get to bring in this whole life experience and make sure that this truly counts in every single way.
It sounds like you have always known how to be a really good leader on a production, but can you pinpoint maybe a past number one on the call sheet who inspired you in terms of how they carried themselves on set and influenced the people around them?
Well, first, wow, how beautiful is that? Immediately, you made me think of Sam Waterston on Law and Order, actually. I remember, and I don't know if he's number one on the call sheet, but I was a young actor. And as a young actor, as a day player, you go on these sets and you try to figure out how to navigate this. It's so many moving pieces, and you even think, well, how do you even learn your lines? Or there's so much happening, you know? And Sam had such a grace and warmth, and he was very pleasant, and he had a great work ethic that I would start to watch. I watched the way he sort of built up his scenes. He started slowly and built them. He was patient with himself, and he's also very kind. And I know that there was a seed planted there. I thought, like, in this storm of production, kindness is the most important thing.
So true. It's so true. I wish that was emphasized even more than it actually is, because I feel like it would completely change the nature of this business.
I completely agree 100%. It would. And I know that's the thing that I wanted to make sure, because I have a lot of young actors in this film, and a lot of them, it was their first film. So in part, I was becoming their Sam Waterston. You know, I want to show them how to lead, because I expect them all to lead someday. And I think I figured out a beautiful way to do it, to make sure everyone's heard and everyone feels valued and everyone has an incredible work ethic. And you really can. It takes everyone. It's such a team effort. And not one person is more worthy than the other. Every PA, every transportation, every grip, we all have a job to do. But I think it's up to the number one. The number one has to be the soul of the production. It's actually not up to the producers. It's that person who's going to be on that set every single day. And on Rustin, I was on set 14 hours a day, every day. Maybe I had 2 days off of the whole production. But it requires you to lead and show how to get it done. And I think it can be done with such grace and peace and love. Yeah.
Absolutely. I will now pivot to another leader on this set, 'cause I'm a big fan of George. Of course, you two have worked together, so big old compound question about working with him again. What is something he did for you on the set of Ma Rainey that you were very excited to experience again on this film? But then also, is there anything he did for you on the set of Rustin that made you look at him and go, like, I knew you were good, but I didn't realize you were that good?
Well, that's a great question. On Ma Rainey, George likes to have private rehearsals with his actors, and which is great. And that really means truly private. That's no DP, no first AD, just himself and the actors. And there was this one time where he pulled me aside when I was going to I have a monologue towards the end of Ma Rainey. And he said, Colman, let's go through the monologue. We went through it. He says, you've been directing a lot lately, haven't you? I said, yeah, I have. And I said it with such pride. And he said, I can tell. He said, you know too much. And I was like, what does that mean? I thought, isn't that a good thing? He said, it is, sort of. He said, but as an actor, you have to liberate yourself. And you have to go to that space of not knowing. He said, not saying you don't need to know your lines and your research and all. You know all this stuff. But you, Colman, also know the shape of the scene and what you're going for aesthetically. And I want you to actually experience it and liberate yourself, because it may change. It may be different and unique. And I thought that was the best note I could get. After doing this for so long, it felt like it was like restarting the way I create again. And then, and so I took that into Rustin. And with Rustin, I just loved, to be very honest, there's a word that I'll say that I found with George that I didn't know I was going to get with Rustin, which was a sense of delicacy, being delicate. He was very delicate with me, because also I think that he knew how much I had to shoulder. But because George he's a workhorse, and he makes sure people up to task. He's very clear about it. He's very strong-minded, strong-willed, and he's tough in a good way. But he had a sense. I knew he could. He knew there needed to be a delicacy in this film, and he was very delicate with me. And I think that was something new for me to experience.
Kindness and delicacy. I want that on every set out there.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the specifics of bringing Rustin to screen. This is a big question, and something I'm always curious about for any actor bringing a real person to screen in a film. But I'm especially curious in your case, because I've heard you describe Bayard as a caricature, someone who, kind of created himself in a sense for other people. So when you're playing a real person like that, how do you draw the line between impersonation and bringing a fully realized, authentic, and layered version version of that person to screen?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. The first thing is there's so many things about Bayard, which is so fascinating. The idea that this man was openly gay at that time. Not only openly gay, he played the lute, he sang Elizabethan love songs, recorded an album, he was on Broadway, he was a star athlete, he was an organizer, he was a war resister, he was a young communist. Who is this guy? You know, like they don't make him like that. Yeah, you know, and on top of it, he had, if you go through his research, debates and interviews, he has this mid-Atlantic standard-ish accent. And you're like, wait, it sounds British at times. And there are times you're like, but no, that sounds like a little like Katharine Hepburn. And you're like, wait, what is this accent? And I asked Rochelle Horowitz, who was one of his dear friends and comrades who actually organized transportation when she was 19 years old for Bayard Rustin for the March on Washington. I said, what was this accent? She said, oh, he made that up. I was like, he made it up? That's fantastic. He really, truly was his own creation. You know, he wore his hair up in like a very high on his head, shocking gray, and a time when brothers usually had sharp fades and stuff like that, and very, you know, for the movement. But he was really just like kind of a hippie in a way. So I was like, oh, great, this is a lot to put on. So I actually worked my voice, which his voice is like about 3 octaves higher than mine. And I worked that accent and I created that in our rehearsals. And at some point, George was like, he loved it, but he also said, okay, that's great. I want to make sure we're not doing mimicry. If you could bring him down a bit more closer to your voice, find that middle ground. Now take some of it off. And that's what we did. And then it was very important for me more than anything to make sure that I got his sense of humor, his sense of touch, the way he moved his body, the way he felt free in spaces, or times when he didn't, where he felt constrained. So I wanted to really find in every scene how he was different and how he was taking in information in his body. And that's what makes him human. That's what makes him vulnerable. That makes him real. And that makes him like, you know, it's like, I know that the most beautiful thing is I know that one of my dear friends says, I don't see you, but I see you at the same time. I know it's not you, but there's that thing that you create with your spirit for another person, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful marriage. So that's my hope, that I didn't just leave myself at the door, but I infused it with some of mine too.
Oh,
but he's his own.
Such a beautiful description right there, and so successful in all those respects. This might be overly prescribed and not necessarily the way you tackled it, but given how many things you just listed off, is there a starting point, like the first thing you wrapped your head around when playing Bayard, but then also what was the very last piece of the puzzle, the thing you were finally able to capture that made you think like, yup, I got it now?
I think one of the first things that I tried to attempt to get is his intelligence, because he knew so much. He was a great organizer and strategist. And so I wanted to download what he knew and how he would go to India and get the teachings from Gandhi to learn about passive resistance. I think that he was very much a person of knowledge and travel. And so that gave me a clue to who he was. You have images of his apartment in Manhattan, he's filled with, masks and canes. He loves walking sticks and chains and necklaces and jewelry. That gives you a sense of who he was in the world. You know what I mean? So you get all that stuff and you download that. And when I think I finally found him is really when I found his voice, to be very honest. When I found that how he uses his voice. Because sometimes in rooms in the film, I will sort of make it a bit more British in a way, or make it a bit more mid-Atlantic standard. And then sometimes I actually take a lot of it off of it when he's just being very vulnerable and in private spaces, and he's not performative in any way. Each time was, once I sort of found that, I understood him more. And I understood that it was a device, that creating your own language in a way is a device. Why else would you do that? Because at first it was questions like, why would you do something like that? Because it's part of your armor as well. If you walk into one of these rooms in the 1960s and you suddenly have a British accent, the world must look at you differently. Right. Right.
So true. All right. So you are exceptional all on your own in this film. You also have a phenomenal ensemble around you. And one thing I always love highlighting in interviews is how many different approaches to acting there are out there. So of everyone in this ensemble, can you pinpoint two co-stars with a completely different approach to the work, where when you're their scene partner, you know you'll have a different acting experience?
Oh, that's great. I would like to point out Emmy-winning, who plays Martin Luther King,
So
and Jeffrey Wright. Emmy-winning is, first of all, I was always, when we started to play off of each other, I loved that there was not any Martin Luther King that I've experienced before. And I've experienced it because I was actually in Selma with David Oyelowo's Martin Luther King, which was profound. But this was all new. This was grounded. It was actually a bit more vulnerable, and it was young and very human. And I loved what he was bringing. So I had to look at him and take out anything that I have thought I knew about Martin Luther King and experience what this is right here. And Amel and I, we play an intimacy that I think is rarely seen. Actually, to be honest, especially between a queer character and a straight character in film, especially with Black men. And it's a delicacy and intimacy that we play with each other, which is beautiful, of true friendship and brotherhood. And then you have Jeffrey Wright, who is just villainous as all get out. It was delicious to him. You could tell that he knew his function. He came in, he was like, oh no, I'm the sort of the big bad. I'm the big bad in this, in these coalitions right now. He's a Northerner. He comes, just Bayard's a Northerner's up. He comes in and he's like, taking a piss on Martin Luther King and everybody else because, it's Adam Clayton Powell's, bravado and his ego. And Jeffrey Wright, what I love about him, you never know what you're going to get from take to take. He's like me. I think that's why we sort of vibe off of each other, because it was like, I don't know what he's going to give me. I don't know what version of this what's going to spark him in this moment. It was beautiful to watch. And I loved the fact that most of the time I just had to be, just be shell shocked at the information he was pouring out at me, which was beautiful to receive. It was like he was just beating me down, which is beautiful.
What was it like watching him go at it with Glenn? Because one of my absolute favorite line deliveries of the whole damn year is when he says, "We have moved on." I think I have replayed that moment more than any other scene in any film of 2023.
Let me tell you, there was one take where Glenn Turman slammed his fist down on the table and the earth shook, because you have this, first of all, this legendary actor, the senior member of our acting company, with all the gravitas in the world, owning his power. He's, truly owning his power. And when I tell you there was that level, all the actors were like, whoa, something's happening now. It's phenomenal. Glenn Turman is one of my favorite actors to work with. I'll work with him over and over again. He's just pure class.
Oh, that moment just like rattled me to my core in the best possible way.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to end here with another big question, but it's one that I find myself asking a lot lately because I always like looking to the promising futures out there. And I also like asking this question whenever someone hits like a career milestone, like having your first lead role in a feature film. Do you have any personal filmmaking goals that feel more within reach to you than ever because you have played Rustin and also just because this movie exists?
I do. I actually, I can't say it just yet, but I'm going to make my directorial debut for a feature film playing an American icon. I co-wrote the script, and it's a movie musical.
I'm losing my mind right now.
I don't know if I'm going to lose my mind or what, because I'm like, now, okay, I'm going from my first, leading role in a feature film to now / doing everything in the world. So I might have to get some pointers and tips from Bradley Cooper and people like that to say, like, am I crazy? But I actually feel like I'm up for the task because I know that I see it visually, I understand it dramaturgically, and I feel like it's like a painting. I want to do the whole painting and actually be in it at the same time.
I'm so excited. I have all the faith in the world. I look forward to that. I also look forward to talking about this movie and your work in it nonstop. Sincerely, congratulations on Rustin.
Thank you, Perry. Thank you so much.